So let's move on to contempt then. Here we have the face of contempt, the only of the unilateral expressions. So where we have the lip corner being pulled back and this universal trigger of immoral act. Okay, so this is the universal trigger, remember, not just the only trigger, but the universal trigger. If someone does something immoral in front of you, then you're likely to feel contempt, which is a way you demonstrate that that's immoral, it's beneath me, and puts you up above them, so you feel superior because you wouldn't do such a thing as that. Okay, so when we have behaviours that you deem to be immoral, and that's subjective, clearly, then you may feel contempt. You may not show it, but you would feel this, and if you were to show it on your face, it would look something like this. One of the aspects around contempt that you might be familiar with is Gottman. So John Gottman did some research in the late 90s, and he came up with the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse for divorce, so in relationships. And one aspect was contempt. And then when you paired that with criticism, defensiveness, and stonewalling, so not wanting to talk about things and basically stonewalling and not discussing problems, those 4 things came together for a high percentage chance of divorce within a few years. So it's interesting research talking about contempt and other factors. The problem is it's very unhealthy in relationships to have one person showing superiority to another. So if you're showing contempt to a partner, you're saying that you're better than them in some way. So contempt in a relationship is not necessarily a good thing. You might see this in cynicism though. So it's, as a public speaker, and many of you I'm sure have spoken to groups of people, when people aren't buying what you're saying, they don't necessarily believe you, you might see this. Now it might be that my opinion is better than yours, I'm more intellectual than you, or whatever it might be, but often you'll have looks from the audience in front of you, which can be quite unnerving, of that, and when you see this, you're in a dialogue can start if you don't grab it quick. So you'll have this cynicism, so they think potentially they're more superior in some way to you, potentially. We did have a student on the course though that kept showing us contempt at every point we mentioned, and it turned out that they had nerve damage on one side of the face and they were actually smiling. So when we approached them at lunch, we didn't say, are you feeling contemptuous? But it was, is everything okay? And they straight away knew that we'd clocked the face. And it was just that they were smiling, but it was on one side of the face, but couldn't move one side of the face. So that's an interesting thing that you have to hypothesize when you have these unilateral expressions, because you have strokes and other kind of things that can happen that can cause paralysis and lower level of movement on one side of the face. So there are other aspects though. So there are things that will make all of you contemptuous. You'll all feel contemptuous at something, I'm sure. It could be the way people dress. It could be the way people talk. And it's, again, not a great thing in society, but groups of people and individuals put themselves above other people. It could be class, it could be gender, it could be race, it could be anything. And when you put yourself above another human being, this could be the product, this contempt. When you feel contempt, because you're feeling superior, it necessarily doesn't feel bad, because you're saying you're up here. But to someone that receives contempt, if they notice it, that's not pleasant. So it's quite a destructive emotion, and it was one that was added later, and again, not agreed with across all scientists. So that's something you have to consider. So this is the one and only time I'll say this in this workshop, but can you please all show me contempt? Okay, good. Yep, excellent. Who here is, so Chazelle, you were off camera, but show me contempt, please. It's a happy contempt. Wow, that's full-on contempt mixed with cognitive load and everything going on there. So you've got, contempt could be left or right. There is no link to handedness. That's a question that often pops up. So if I'm right-handed, do I show it on my left? And if I'm left, do I show it on my right? It changes. So show me contempt, and what side feels better to you? So David S, what side are you? So you're right?
Yeah, I was on the right for me. I was trying them on the left, but it just didn't feel. This was more kind of, yeah.
It's a more comfortable contempt on the right.
Yeah, more comfortable contempt.
Dave, you were going for the left. Was that your left hand coming up? Excellent. Okay, yeah, I'm a left contempt typically. Okay, so it's interesting to notice that, and oftentimes if I've been in conversations where people say things in front of me that I do think is either immoral or below my moral standards, perhaps the conversation they're talking about. And one of the first things I'll notice that tells me that is my mouth, my lip corner. And I'll be in conversation and I'll feel it go and I catch it and go, whoa, oh, there's contempt coming in. And then I can modulate my face because I don't want them to feel like I'm showing the contempt, because that's my problem sometimes. You know, it's what they're saying is their opinion. Just because I disagree doesn't mean I should make them feel bad about it. So again, from an interactional point of view, you've got to be aware of those things. Bettina, you have a question?
Yes. Would you say contempt is a natural emotion if somebody has an expert knowledge, and this is somehow a natural emotion? Yeah, and it affects, but it affects its actions. So that's an interesting aspect, I think.
Certainly, yeah. So when you have experts, we'll put those in scare quotes, where you have experts that think they know better than someone else. Again, it's that I have an authority or a superiority of intellect or opinion or whatever it might be, then you have a strong chance of contempt appearing. And as an example, you'll see it a lot in politics as well. So what I'm going to do is I'll show you this video. This is Angela Rayner, and she's an MP for one party, for the opposition in the UK, and she's deputy leader of the opposition, and she's made some claims to the government that there's corruption, you know, shady deals, they're helping each other out, conversations in elevators, those kinds of things, to get good deals. And she's being chastised by Penny Mordaunt from the government. So she's heard her claims and now she's having a go at her. Now bear in mind context, Penny Mordaunt, who's about to speak, is standing up and Angela is sitting down. So already physically there is a I'm up here and you're now sitting down. But just notice Angela Rayner's face in this particular one.
Entered into politics, made sacrifices, overcome the obstacles that she will be aware of to get into this place, not to serve in public life, but to do a mate, or more accurately a Tory mate, or someone that they vaguely know, or met in a lift once, or perhaps don't know at all, a favour. That is the accusation that she is making today. And I'm afraid this is why the Labour line of attack is not getting traction, well rehearsed though it is.
So, did you notice that? It was a pretty big pull on the right hand side for her, and it is pretty common. So she's pretty consistent with the way she shows contempt, and when you see it, if you watch any of the Commons footage, it's something that will be shown now. She's pretty new to politics as well and wanted to make a mark. So she's come in and all guns blazing and making accusations, rightly or wrongly, whatever. But that strong contempt, this was one of her early kind of criticisms, and then to be shot down, this is very much a cynical look at Penny as she's being chastised, certainly. But it's a good example, and you will see it quite commonly if you watch news programmes and such. David, yes, you have a question.
I was just going to ask, how long was the onset of contempt for? Did you know when you were watching it? Was it on quite a while, or was it quite a short thing?
For this one, yeah. It's held for quite a long time. For the bulk of being chastised, the second she stands up, it starts to creep in, and then it's held. Like, it's almost whatever kind of vote, yeah. Whatever you say. Okay, Dave, question.
Does the tilted head come into play or emphasize, and is that something that's common?
It can happen. So oftentimes we call it looking down the nose. So we have, so in English we say looking down your nose, but I think in other, I'm not sure, it could be Spanish, it's looking down your shoulder. Is it the same, Thomas, you're in Portugal, but we say looking down your nose at someone when you're showing contempt, but I'm sure there's a looking down your shoulder, which is almost that kind of same thing.
Yeah.
Is it, am I correct in saying that, Thomas, in Portuguese? Would you say looking?
It's more common about the nose, but
Oh, okay.
we also speak about the shoulder.
Excellent, yeah. So that head tilts, head back, those kind of things are quite common, but not a universal. So they're different. Okay, excellent.